I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. Hello, and welcome into yet another incredible episode of The Locker Room. Before we get started, make sure you follow The Locker Room on Twitter, TLR with Jacob, on Facebook, The Locker Room host Jacob, on Instagram, The Locker Room Podcast 615, and on TikTok, The Locker Room 22. That's right, if you hear that sound, that is the joyous sound of having no more weekends without football from here until the end of February. We at The Locker Room are more excited about football season than I think anything else in the entire world. We are going to start off with not only my predictions for Thursday night's matchup in the NFL, but with The Locker Room's fantasy football. More importantly, my two fantasy teams that I did. I'm going to walk you through them. I'm going to talk about them with you. I'm going to brag a little bit. So here we go. Let's go right into my fantasy football team. First off, congratulations to Nolan Deering, Justin Courtwright, Steve Hines, Seth Thornton, and Levi Bowman on winning the Locker Room fantasy football team sweepstakes. So congratulations, gentlemen. Look forward to beating you all as we go throughout the rest of this season. I'm going to start off with a quick little rundown of my team for you. Let you know who I've got. Let you know who I've got in my week one matchup. This will be a continuous thing on the Locker Room podcast. It might be coming out in short little segments via Instagram video. So make sure you follow our Instagram page because we are about to do college football pick'ems, NBA bubble reviews. We are about to be loading up that Instagram with content. So make sure you are following and subscribe to our Instagram page. Remember, that is the Locker Room Podcast 615. All right, here we go. Rundown of my team. I'm going to start off with my team name, of course. I shall be called I Am Inevitable. And yes, I have a wonderful picture of Thanos to go along with that catchphrase. Starting off with my team, and I will run down my starting lineup for this coming Thursday because that is when all this kicks off. So here is my rundown of my team. First and foremost, I've got Deshaun Watson, Christian McCaffrey, James Conner, Julio Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster, George Kittle, Robert Woods. I've got the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I've got Justin Tucker. I've got Joe Mixon. I've got Kenny Golladay. I've got Evan Ingram. I've got Dak Prescott. I've got Antonio Gibson. I've got Henry Ruggs III. And finally, I've got Stephon Diggs to round out my fantasy team. Now, here's a few things I do want to say about fantasy football. First off, if you've never been in a fantasy football league, if you're curious about it, then next year enter the Locker Room's contest in order to get in the Fantasy Football League because fantasy football is some of the most fun you can have while a sport is going on. Not only does ESPN do an incredible job on their app of making it fun, making it interactive, making it enjoyable, but it's fun to be the GM of a team. It's fun to not only draft, of course, the star players, but find those diamond in the roughs and take gambles on players. It is such a blast. I love fantasy football. I can't praise ESPN enough for their ESPN Fantasy Football app. It is fun. It's interactive. It's easy to set up. I encourage you to jump in. You can jump in as early as Thursday morning if you really want to make a team, and you can join public leagues, private leagues, whatever you want. So this year with fantasy, I did something a little bit different. Jacob Courtwright actually did his homework. That is right. I know that is a shock. It's a shock to me. But I studied not only fantasy, I studied players. I watched film. I listened to the experts. I watched sleeper picks. I listened and read a program that has been put out by this man every year who has won millions of dollars doing this. I invested my time into my fantasy this year, all right? And this is the first year that coming out of the draft, I am the number one ranked team after the draft. I am projected to do the most points in week one by a margin of 20. I have the number one ranked overall offense and defense if you put them both together. So I did my homework, and it served me well as I am ranked number 1 in both my leagues this year. So I tell you all that to tell you this. The Locker Room podcast is doing a bunch of really fun stuff during the NFL season. Every Wednesday, I will be coming out with who should I pick player over player for my fantasy team. You at home can play along. You at home can determine who I start week to week in my fantasy league. You at home can help me decide how we should go ahead and take both these Super Bowls. So make sure, like I said, make sure you follow the Locker Room on Instagram, because we are going to be doing a bunch of really fun segments on who to pick, and you can help me pick my fantasy team. You can help me play every single week. So please join in. Please make sure you're following and subscribe, because it is going to be a blast. Now let's go ahead and look at my week 1 matchup. This week I'm already going to, this is a tradition that I do. When I pick my team, I usually leave my team as it is for the first week. I can evaluate what I like, what I don't like, then I start making some moves. But let's go ahead and talk about my week 1 matchup for the Locker Room Podcast Fantasy Football League. So out the gate, I'm playing one of my best friends, Mr. Levi Bowman. His team name is Ain't Ready for Haskins. And that is right, you heard me. Ain't ready for Haskins, because he believes that Dwayne Haskins is going to be a top not only 10 quarterback, but could potentially be one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. He believes the Washington R-words are going to win the division. We have a very strong bet that the Dallas Cowboys are going to win. I have $100 that the Cowboys are going to run away with this division. He has a bet that the Washington Redskins are going to win this division. So I will be collecting a nice $100 bill at the end of this football season. But let's go ahead and talk matchup. First and foremost, quarterback versus quarterback, Lamar Jackson versus Deshaun Watson. I'm going to go with him on this one. You've got Lamar Jackson, you've got a star, you've got a stud. I've got to go with Lamar on this one. He takes position number 1. Position number 2, Aaron Jones. I've got Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey destroys Aaron Jones. Not even close. Position 3, Le'Veon Bell, James Conner. Honestly, it depends. I do not like what the New York Jets do. I do not like what Adam Gase has done up there. I don't think they have a strong run game. They have no identity on offense. Le'Veon Bell's overrated. I think James Conner is going to have a comeback season for the ages with a great quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger being healthy. I'm going to go with me on this one. James Conner overrides Le'Veon Bell for me. Next, we're going to go to wide receiver 1 positions. He's got Michael Thomas. I've got Julio Jones. This is a very close one for me. This year, I have projected that Julio, I took him in both of my leagues this year, that Julio is going to have a incredible year, not only offensively, but touchdown-wise. I believe we're going to see a 1,200-yard, 10-touchdown year from Julio Jones. He finally has some help with Calvin Ridley, Hooper. They've now got a good backfield with a very good back. So this for me is close. I'll give him the lead in this one just because Michael Thomas is a little bit superior. Catching the ball wise, he'll get a little bit more production. But Julio Jones has the potential to be neck and neck with Michael and maybe even finish atop him at the end of this year. Now we're going to go down to Mike Evans on his side to my Juju Smith-Schuster. Here's what I like and don't like about Mike Evans. I like that Mike Evans is targeted even when he's double-teamed. What I don't like is you're now allowing Tom Brady to take reins of this offense, and Tom Brady is not going to be bombing the ball like Jameis Winston was 45 yards plus down the field. So advantage me, I believe, here just simply for the fact that Ben Roethlisberger is healthy. Juju Smith-Schuster has a ton of help on that offensive side of the ball. He'll get a ton of targets. He's going to get a lot of points. Mike Evans is going to have a lot of competition. You've got Gronkowski. You've now got Leonard Fournette. You've got Chris Godwin, who's a top 5, some people even say top 4 wide receiver in this league. And Mike Evans. There's so much down there. You've got Howard at the tight end position. They're going to be running a lot of dual tight end sets. You're going to see a heavy running game, a lot of short passes. I believe Mike Evans has a regression year, and I believe so does Chris Godwin, simply for the fact that is not what Tom Brady does. So I'm going to go Juju Smith-Schuster here, advantage me simply for the fact that he's going to get more volume than Mike Evans. Now we move on to the tight end position. George Kittle on my side to his Darren Waller. I do like Darren Waller, but here's the fact. Here's the fact of the matter. Here's the hard evidence. George Kittle's the best tight end in football. George Kittle can't be touched. The fact that I got George Kittle on both of my leagues says something about George Kittle for me. George Kittle is a wide receiver one playing the tight end position. He's going to get his targets. He's going to get his points. He's going to get his touchdowns every year. Advantage, Jacob Courtwright and the locker room. Mr. I Am Inevitable is feeling pretty good about his team right now. All right, let's move on to the flex position. Right now, I have Robert Woods, Los Angeles Rams wide receiver in my flex. I have not messed with this at all. I've got some players on the bench that are definitely going to be moving into that spot. But Robert Woods versus his Cooper Kupp, it's interesting because, of course, they're both on the same team. Even though Cooper Kupp is known as a top 15 wide receiver in a lot of people's eyes, Robert Woods gets more value, gets more production in the down-to-down basis, so he usually ends up outscoring Cooper Kupp by about 6 or 7. So if it stays this way, I'm going to go advantage me again. I just believe Robert Woods has too much upside in the down-to-down markers than Cooper Kupp does. Now we're going to go defenses. His 49ers defense to my Pittsburgh Steelers defense. This is another close one. I'll give him the advantage simply because of what San Francisco was able to do last year. It's hard to not go ahead and give them that crown. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, mind you, could be a top 3 defense in this league. So watch out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not sad at all about getting the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm going to go ahead and give it to them. The defensive line for San Francisco 49ers, even losing Buckner, they are still stacked on that side of the ball. I'm leaning a little bit more towards San Francisco here, so advantage him. Finally, we go to our kickers. Justin Tucker, you don't need to know who his kicker is because I have the best kicker in football. Not even close. Don't even have to say whoever his kicker's name is because it's advantage me, without a doubt. Now, we won't go through the benches simply because they're not going to play. Like I said, follow us on Instagram so you can play along with me as I move players from my bench to my starting lineup strictly off of what the highest request is for that week. It's going to be a lot of fun for you playing along at home with me. But we won't go through the benches. I think Joe Mixon is somebody that could stick out on my bench, though. Joe Mixon just got a nice contract from Cincy. He's their lead back. He's their only back. He will do very nicely, especially if Burrow can start getting some passes early with a finally healthy wide receiver core there. Dak Prescott is a major sleeper. He's Mr. Consistent when it comes to fantasy football. Kenny Golladay, Evan Ingram, Antonio Gibson is my sleeping running back from Washington after Adrian Peterson got booted. Gibson could be a stud stick out this year, so be sure to watch out for that. Then, of course, Henry Ruggs could be another stud. And Stephon Diggs was just one of those. He was available. I grabbed him. I had one more pick. But we won't go through too much more of the bench. I am projected 141.1 to his 129.1. Advantage the locker room and Mr. I Am Inevitable. So very excited about this. Let me know what you think at home. That is my fantasy team for the Locker Room's Football Fantasy League for Week 1. Do you think that he has the advantage? Do you think I have the advantage? Let me know at home. I'd love to hear from you. Before we get off the fantasy football topic, I do want to discuss my other team just for a quick second. Now, to give you a background, it's a 10-person league. Don't get me wrong. These are football minds over here. These are guys that watch football religiously, know what they're talking about. So I got screwed with the 7th overall pick, all right? So I get botched in the very back, and it's not the very last pick where I get back-to-back picks. It's that awkward 7th pick. So I swallowed the pill, and I was like, all right, we're going to do what we have to do here. Let's see what we come up with. Now, I don't know if this was a pity year on Jacob simply because I haven't had great years in the past. I had one really good year 2 years ago. Last year, not so much. A lot of players got injured. But I was able to walk away with this, and don't get me wrong, there's some sneaky moves going around behind the scenes where I'm moving some players around to get even bigger names. But let's run through my second fantasy team just real quick. I've got Ben Roethlisberger as my starting quarterback. I traded away Deshaun Watson so I could pick up Saquon Barkley. So it was a trade for a trade. So let's go ahead and run through it. Ben Roethlisberger, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, George Kittle, David Johnson, the Chicago Bears defense, Matt Prater as my kicker. On my bench, I've got DJ Chark, Hunter Henry, CeeDee Lamb, Phillip Rivers, the Cowboys